So thank you all for coming. This is a subject that I addressed a little bit with one of our ladies' meetings at my house many years ago. So I began with two other topics before choosing this one. And I tried to move away from this topic, but I kept coming back to it. This one just kept flowing, so I finally gave in and let it happen. In this presentation, I'm going to give you an overview of a book I read in 2018 called When Helping You is Hurting Me by Carmen Renee Berry. The subtitle is Escaping the Messiah Trap. So my title is The Messiah Trap. Berry, a believer in God and the Bible, chose Messiah because culturally it refers to a divine messenger from God. To some, the Messiah is God. At the same time, the Messiah is one who cares and suffers for others, and is eventually sacrificed and martyred while in service to others. As human beings, we may find ourselves stepping into the Messiah role as we try to help and physically save all of the other human beings in our path who need help. I hope her phrase, Messiah trap, is not offensive to you. I feel as I share her definition of this concept, it will reveal a real problem many people have in varying degrees. A key phrase here is varying degrees. We can fall into the trap for periods of time or have a lifestyle on the extreme end of the Messiah trap. Personally, I am too busy. Reading the book the first time made me aware of the Messiah trap. Reading it a second time, as I was preparing my notes, is motivating me to try and change this problem in my life. I'll describe the two sides of the Messiah trap, and you can decide if you may have fallen into the trap. Side one, if I don't do it, it won't get done. Messiahs have been taught to believe their primary purpose in life is to help other people, because no one else will. It's their responsibility to help daddy stop drinking, to keep the office running smoothly, to help the teenager no one else seems to like. It's the Messiah's job to keep everyone happy, and theirs alone. Side two, everyone else's needs take priority over mine. Attempts to nurture oneself are seen as selfish and the worst grievance a Messiah could commit. These two contrasting ideas are false, and believing them places the Messiah in a very awkward dichotomy. The Messiah, on one hand, feels the weight of tremendous responsibility for others, and therefore, by default, the most important person in the world. Messiahs can act as if they are indispensable in the lives of those they are trying to help. On the other hand, the Messiah often feels unimportant, as personal needs do not seem to merit any concern. Messiahs can feel isolated, with no one to turn to with their pain. While the Messiah may be busy taking care of others, no one is busy taking care of them. It's an odd combination of feeling grandiose yet worthless, of being needed and yet abandoned, of playing God while groveling. Everyone's needs are important. Love is balanced, fair, caring, strong, and non-exploitive. Love is full, whole, and large enough to encompass us all. Many Messiahs have been raised to believe that the lies of the Messiah trap are God-given, based in Scripture. They may have been raised in a home where the family members loved God and felt a strong need to help others. The intent may have been good, but the structure of the family, maybe unrealized by the parents, was out of balance. Let's look at how that might happen. Sometimes a family, trying to always be available to help others, fails to meet the needs of the children and their own valid needs. If we get to the place where we feel responsible to help everyone who is in need, we can find ourselves in the first step of the Messiah trap. If I don't do it, it won't get done. Realistically, that's an impossible task for any human being. For the parents of a family who believe step one, what happens to the children in the family? This is where step two is learned. The child's needs go unmet. Children can learn to feel responsible for everyone else and that their own needs are not important. In an excerpt from a story in the book, a client, Deidre, related that her family rarely had a meal without inviting someone else to share it. She related that as a child at one family meal, her younger brother was showing off, and their mother told him to shape up. We have company. He snapped back, we always have company. When can it be just us? The dad became very angry, embarrassed by what his son had said. After the guests left, the dad lectured them sternly never to say or do such a thing again. Deidre and her brother felt guilty and ashamed. They were expected to be quiet and giving. Nothing less would be tolerated. Certainly the child needed to understand that wasn't an appropriate response at the time. He was expressing a need to be with his family without always having company at their meals. Instead of his need being addressed after he expressed it, he was made to feel ashamed and guilty for having the need. The family was out of balance. The needs of the children and adults in a family are just as important as the needs of people outside the home. The children were being taught that their need for attention and nurturing from the parents was selfish. Everyone else's needs took priority over theirs. The parents were not intending to be cruel, withhold love, be insensitive, or uncaring. They were so focused on helping others, they lost sight of their responsibilities to their own children. There are developmental stages children go through. They have legitimate needs that must be met for them to grow into adults to have balanced lives capable of caring relationships. Children must be allowed to be children during these years. They need loving, balanced guidance from both parents. As we move through our lives, we have many kinds of relationships. For those of us who believe in God, and we all do, our relationship with Him takes priority. We focus on living our lives from a foundation of love toward God and others. Extending love to others is a very important part of our relationship with God. So I'm going to be in Matthew and go through a few of the verses there. Matthew 25, 32 and 33. Matthew 25, 32 and 33. It speaks of all nations being gathered before Yeshua and the sheep being placed on his right hand and the goats on his left. In verses 34 through 36. 34 through 36. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, Come, O blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was in prison, and you came to me. And in verses 37 through 39, the righteous will ask, When did we do these things? Matthew 25:40. And the king will answer, Truly I say to you, as you did it to the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. It's very clear that we are to help others. How do we get so out of balance that we can fall into what Berry calls the Messiah trap? How can our actions of love and giving have negative consequences? Berry has come to this conclusion from her personal journey as a therapist and watching it happen to many of the mental health professionals she worked with. Searching her own motivation for helping, she found that she avoided being intimate with others. She says, I set myself up as a better, more together person. The truth is, I was hurting, deeply hurting, but I didn't know how to signal for help. She says of herself and some of her coworkers, we also seemed driven, even addicted, to having intense and emotional relationships we were trying to help. She asked herself, why do I spend all of my time helping others? Could I stop if I tried? Or am I addicted to helping? Why did I choose to work with people in pain? Could it be because I am not willing to face my own pain directly? She began to communicate more honestly with friends and colleagues about the pain and concerns in life. They responded in kind. Many professional and lay persons perform their helping duties in a balanced manner. However, many are addicted to helping. For those who are addicted to helping, it can be an indirect way they may be trying to help themselves without realizing it. So what are some characteristics of the Messiah trap? Messiahs try to be helpful wherever they go. Many messiahs choose professions that focus on the welfare of others, such as the ministry, social work, education, medicine, psychology, or childcare. Others, such as homemakers, students, and senior adults, volunteer for a variety of caregiving projects. Wherever messiahs are found, they will be busy taking care of other people. It's easy for messiahs to pretend that they have no needs or inner hurts. They present themselves as people who can give comfort and answers while neglecting the pain throbbing deep inside. I'm going to share some stories from the book that describe people caught in the Messiah trap. Deidre is a talented counselor who juggles a caseload of clients, a marriage of 22 years, the care of her aging mother, and the needs of her 3 grown children and grandchildren. Gregarious, sensitive, and warm, Deidre welcomes everyone she meets into her family. She often offers a listening ear and a cup of tea to all who need her. Deidre is becoming aware of a hard-to-define feeling that is growing within her. When she has been up half the night with a suicidal client or forced to cancel a day off to listen to a friend despair over divorce, she feels tired and frustrated. When someone asks her how she is, she just says fine, not because she is feeling well, but because she no longer knows how she feels. She is so caught up in counseling others, she has no time for herself. When did she leave herself behind? Is it too late to find herself and her own life? Alicia is a young single mother who supports her children on the minimal salary she makes working at a preschool. Even though her finances are limited, Alicia is always helping out other people. She can be counted on to bring homemade cookies to the potluck dinner, bags of canned goods for the food drive, and colorfully wrapped Christmas presents for the foster kids in town. As long as there's food on her table, she is willing to share it. What others don't see behind Alicia's broad smile and generosity are sad eyes that cry alone. Alicia deeply feels the pain of others, that she wants to give more than she is able. She feels guilty if she spends any money on herself, because it's money she could spend on her children. She chastises herself for spending money on her children that she should send to the starving children she saw on TV. No matter how much she gives, Alicia cannot seem to feel she's given enough. The more Alicia gives, however, the more frustrated she becomes. Paul is a pastor who over the years has been known and respected for his compelling yet compassionate preaching style. People are drawn to Paul by the depth of his caring and his ability to deal with every situation. Paul has everything under control. Intent on protecting people from themselves, Paul is confused by the negative reactions he sometimes receives. Paul cares deeply for others and can't understand why his efforts aren't appreciated or rewarded. Even his wife is becoming angry when he tries to help her. In fact, she is so angry these days, he's afraid she may leave him. He's doing the right thing by helping others, so why are things such a mess? Gary is a popular public speaker and university professor, nationally known for his insight and lively performances. Gary draws huge crowds wherever he goes. Success came easily and early for Gary. Now he feels driven to compete with his own success. Driven by the belief that his teaching will help many, Gary's life has become a blur of airports and taxis and faceless crowds. Unable to refuse a request, Gary's schedule is overbooked and his mind overtaxed. Fits of anxiety rob him of sleep. He's afraid that he's slipping in popularity. Old presentations are renamed and recycled, since Gary no longer has the time to create new ones. There's no time for new ideas, no time to think, and certainly no time to feel. And the last one here is James is a social worker and agency administrator. He and his wife are totally dedicated to social justice and to living a simple way of life. Side by side, they work long hours for their causes. People in their community marvel at their dedication, their compassion, and their willingness to take a stand regardless of the cost. James' dedication to the crusade is so intense that he is becoming angrier and angrier. Enraged by the injustice he sees, frustrated by the lack of resources and support, James often struggles to contain his angry impulses. One day blurs into the next as he faces one battle after the next. He is afraid to admit that there are days when he wants to dump responsibility and whisk his wife off to a quiet and safe place. But instead, he just places one foot in front of the other. Even if he wanted to leave, he sees no real way out. These messiahs neglect themselves because they feel that they are supposed to sacrifice their own well-being for the sake of others. This is the Messiah's definition of love. Messiahs view life as a series of choices between their own needs and the needs of others. But there's nothing left over for the Messiah. They can feel guilt taking any time for themselves, unappreciated, having a feeling of deep tiredness that seems too heavy to carry. Most of the time, they are too busy to feel anything except the pressure of having too much to do and too little time. They may feel the pressure to be a cheerful giver. Let's read 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 7. 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 7. The point is this: he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must do as he has made up his mind, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. This is a principle about giving financially, and I think we can use it as a guideline for other ways of giving, like our time. We need to decide how much of our time we can give to helping others while still taking proper care of our bodies, so we can continue to be cheerful in our giving. To encourage us to find balance, we need to remember 1 Corinthians 3, 16 and 17. 1 Corinthians 3, 16 and 17. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. For God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. Our minds and our physical bodies need care. Neglect will eventually rob us of any ability to serve others. How do some of us get to the place of being helpaholics? What may have happened in our past that pushed us in this direction? It can very easily begin in childhood. Here are some possibilities. There can be various reasons a child takes on the parent's role of caring for younger siblings. The parents may have health issues, be addicted to alcohol or drugs, be irresponsible, or have to work to pay the bills. Whatever the situation, legitimate or not, the child steps into a caregiving role way too early. They miss the important stages of childhood. Another example is the child who becomes a peer to the parent. Deidre, I mentioned earlier, found herself in this situation. Her dad was always gone after dinner in the evening, to meetings or helping others. Her mom would corner Deidre for long periods of time in the evenings, complaining about her neglectful husband. Deidre missed her dad too. In becoming a peer to her mom, she didn't have proper relationships with her siblings. She didn't have the opportunity to develop friendships with children her age. Deidre was not developmentally ready to be an adult or peer to her mother. Now as an adult, Deidre feels compelled to help everyone in her path. This may be her unconscious way of fulfilling an emotional void from childhood. Another example is a surrogate spouse. This may be on an emotional level with no sexual violation, but again, this is not a child's responsibility. It is more likely to happen between a mother and son or a father and a daughter. The adult, unable to relate to their spouse for whatever reason, confides in the child for emotional support. The emotionally absent parent may be out doing good things for others, having also fallen into the Messiah trap, which often makes the child feel even more obligated to help out at home with a neglected parent. The impact on the child can be devastating. Deidre struggled as she came to see how her godly, well-meaning parents had presented her with a distorted view of love, God, and of her place in the world. She had been a good girl, which in essence meant that she had no opportunity to be a girl at all. Like most messiahs, she became an adult at a very young age. Deidre had been pulled into the Messiah trap, not by someone cruel, but by her own parents, who were themselves victims of the Messiah trap. On an unconscious level, a Messiah can be drawn toward healing these wounds. This is hard because they have never been given permission to identify their legitimate needs, let alone address those needs. However, the unidentified needs and the pain will not remain silent. It can become the hidden motivation in the choices made. These are some characteristics that messiahs can exhibit. Number 1, tries to earn a sense of worth by acting worthy. Number 2, lets others determine his or her actions. Number 3, needs to overachieve. Number 4, is attracted to helping those with similar pain. Number 5, experiences difficulty in establishing peer and intimate relationships. Number 6, is caught in a cycle of isolation. 7, is driven to endless activity. Last one, number 8, stops when he or she drops. A child stops when he or she drops. Number 8. A child on the path to becoming a messiah may be pressured to always focus on being good, which is defined as acting in accordance to the wishes of adults. They are always to be good, always think of others, and they are never, ever selfish. They are always expected to say nice things. They are forbidden to express certain feelings. They learn that certain feelings are unacceptable. They are not to feel those feelings at all. Learning to cut off those emotions, they become adults who are unable to feel parts of their inner selves. Many messiahs are hurting, needy, and overwhelmed, but cannot seem to accept help. Most messiahs have great difficulty receiving gifts, letting people throw parties in their honor, or calling a friend when their car breaks down on the highway. Messiahs don't mind giving people rides or dropping off bags of groceries to shut-ins, but may be very frustrated and even humiliated if they need a ride or a friend to drop off some food when ill. Most messiahs rarely disclose personal, especially problematic information. Messiahs take on much more than can be humanly accomplished. There are too few hours in a day. Messiahs are frantically trying to outrun their human limitations. They are trying to accomplish enough to earn peace of mind, a sense of value, the right to be loved. They are fighting to justify their very existence. To find a way out of this trap, the Messiah has to come to a place of realization that this is a race they can never win. Being a helpaholic does not satisfy the hunger inside. Overachievement does not bring happiness. Addressing the pain that pushed the Messiah into the trap is the road to freedom. Berry asks those who feel they may be messiahs, what kind of messiah are you? I'm going to read the questions that she asks. So it'll be 7. Number 1, do you spend your time at social gatherings making sure everyone is having a good time? Are you a pleaser? Number 2, was your evening at home again interrupted by the call of a friend in crisis and you dropped everything to run out and help? Are you a rescuer? 3, did you agree to help a friend move on your only free Sunday this month? Are you a giver? Number 4, were you up late again last night, listening to someone struggle with his or her problems, but this morning could think of no one you felt could listen to yours? Are you a counselor? Number 5, did you try to help a couple of friends work out their differences, got caught in the middle, and they both turned on you? Are you a protector? Number 6, are you overwhelmed by the number of groups you are leading, presentations you are making, and study or preparation that has to be done? Are you a teacher? And number 7, do you find yourself so driven to fight for a worthy cause that between the committee meetings, newsletters, fundraisers, you are about to drop from exhaustion? Are you a crusader? So to shorten these 7, There's pleaser, rescuer, giver, counselor, protector, teacher, and crusader. Messiahs can be one, several, or all seven. I personally can see that I have been out of balance to some degree in all seven at times. I'm going to explain each of these as briefly as I can and give examples of some to help clarify what they mean. So, a pleaser. Desiring to be sensitive and responsive to the needs of others is a valuable quality and necessary for good relationships. We need to be balanced pleasers. The Messiah pleaser is someone who begins with a desire to please, but then translates this desire into a responsibility. Pleasers feel responsible for other people's happiness, and when others are displeased, pleasers usually experience feelings of guilt and failure. The more they say yes, the more other people start asking for help. Pleasers choose to suffer rather than disappoint anyone else. Pleasers dance to someone else's tune, feeling trapped while denying their true feelings. Number 2, the rescuer. In the way that pleasers attract people with request, rescuers attract people in crisis. Rescuers tend to drop everything to aid someone in trouble, regardless of the personal hardship it may cause them or others they have commitments to. Consequently, the rescuer may be considered unreliable by those left behind, as the rescuer runs off to the rescue. Rescuers are always on call for unexpected crisis and may live in a continual dread of the phone ringing or the knock on the door. Rescuers turn rescuing into a lifestyle. And number 3, the giver. Givers tend to be generous people who delight in the act of giving. They are thrilled to watch someone receive a gift and the joy spread across his or her face. The most exciting is to provide something that the receiver would otherwise go without. The trap comes when the opportunity to give is viewed as an obligation. Addicted to giving, they become unable to place realistic limits on giving. They give and give and give, and stop only when there is nothing left but feelings of guilt and fatigue. Number 4, the counselor. I think the following story explains this one well. Deidre was happy her youngest sister had found a man who could put up with her demands. At their wedding reception, Deidre, who seems to pick up poor souls in trouble, noticed a woman by the punch bowl who seemed alone and feeling awkward. She went over to say hi. The lady was Deidre's new brother-in-law's ex-girlfriend. When the newlyweds arrived at the reception, Deidre took the ex-girlfriend out for a walk. After 2 hours of her sobbing and talking, they went back to the reception where nearly everyone had left. Deidre says, "I missed getting to see my sister before she left for her honeymoon. My mother was angry at me because they couldn't find me for the family pictures. Of course, my husband was furious because he said I left him alone again while I took care of someone else." She shrugged her shoulders. "What could I do? Abandon this poor creature? I couldn't. She needed me." Counselors have a special knack for getting people to open up their secrets and their pain. Multitudes of people crave to be heard, but there are very few listeners. Counselors listen, so people talk. Counselors can easily turn every social situation into an opportunity to counsel. Doing so robs them of time needed for relaxation and renewal. Counselors may take in more pain than can easily be managed. Experiencing other people's trauma can become overwhelming. Another dilemma is who does the counselor confide in? Counselors are not supposed to be people with problems. Where can the counselor find a place they can be honest about their inner struggles? Where do they go with their own inner pain? Many do not take the risk and continue to hide from life in the feelings of others. Number 5, the protector. Protectors are caring people who overstep the bounds of the possible. One of the ways is to protect others by keeping secret potentially harmful information. They can also overstep boundaries by passing on too much information. They may overhear private conversations, bits of news in staff meetings or social gatherings, all of which might be considered helpful to someone else, so they pass it along, possibly breaking promises or confidentiality. As a consequence, their protecting may be seen as intrusive or dishonest. Protectors often feel responsible for making choices for others on their behalf. The sacrifices may be great, but the appreciation scarce. Number 6, the teacher. Teachers take on groups to help, not just individuals. They fall into the Messiah trap when the desire to communicate with others is expanded into an obligation. Believing in their message, they may have great difficulty turning down opportunities to speak, teach, or perform. Teachers have to spend additional time preparing for presentations and group activities. When a Messiah teacher is also paired with any other Messiah categories, it can become very complicated. Again, they may be helping others, but who's helping them? Number 7, the crusader. Crusaders are people with an acute sense of justice that propels them to action. They are passionate about the social ills they have chosen to confront, intent on bringing about change. When others suffer, the crusader suffers. They are devoted to their chosen cause. While beginning with a desire to empower the powerless, crusaders often come face to face with a sense of powerlessness instead. While the styles may differ in some ways, all 7 Messiah types are helpaholics, susceptible to becoming overextended and overinvested in the lives of others. They lack the ability to set realistic limits on time, energy, or resources. Instead, Messiahs tend to feel driven to be all things to all people, responsible to meet everyone's needs with a sense of urgency. Messiahs are caring people who have fallen prey to believing that they must make a lifestyle of caring for others in such a way that leaves them distraught, deprived, and alone. They may be running so fast to meet deadlines, answering phone calls, squeezing in one more client, and feeling everyone's pain that they don't stop long enough to feel their own pain. How much of what a Messiah does helps or hinders others? Could some of the helping actually hurt others? Some of the giving or helping others can be based on what we need. We may give so we will be accepted. We may rescue others while letting our own responsibilities go unattended. Dale, an attorney, was helping his client Sally with her divorce. At first, she seemed to be handling things well, but the longer the process took, Sally became more dependent on Dale. He was even helping her balance her checkbook. Dale began to feel that Sally couldn't get through any of the divorce steps without his help. Helping people was a way Dale could feel worthwhile. He had become addicted to rescuing others. Stepping outside the boundaries of an attorney, he created special expectations from clients and cultivated dependent relationships. He overscheduled his day, creating more crisis situations. Dale felt he had to choose between having his needs met and caring for the needs of others. In Sally's case, was Dale really helping her? When he provided his professional services, he was treating Sally with dignity and genuine assistance. By balancing her checkbook, however, he was treating her like an incompetent victim. His actions underscored her low self-esteem and intensified her fear of not coping well as a single woman. When he came running to her every call, he showed her that he believed she was incapable of protecting herself and managing her own life as an adult. He was crippling Sally's growth each time he rescued her. Dale saw only 2 options. He had to rescue or abandon Sally. He did not see options like referring her to a program designed to assist women in transition, helping her find a support group for divorcing parents, or having her ask a friend to help with her finances. He could have pointed her toward resources to help her to be responsible for her own life. In trying to help too much, he was handicapping her from moving forward with her life. If we see ourselves out of balance in any of these areas, how do we work toward freeing ourselves? There are no support groups for helpaholics, even if we recognize we have a problem. Messiahs can feel guilt for just about everything. Although messiahs deal compassionately with the failings of others, they demand nothing less than perfection from themselves. They may agonize over trivial transgressions, such as being 15 minutes late for an appointment or failing to return a phone call. While messiahs are open to listening to others share their vulnerabilities, they are never open to sharing their own. They can also feel shame because they judge themselves so harshly. What if we are a messiah? The first step is realizing we are human, just like everyone else. We need others. It's okay to ask for help. We have to re-examine how we see ourselves and the world. By asking for assistance, we acknowledge we have value. We are important enough to warrant time, attention, and tender loving care. Our story is important, a story of courage, of dignity, of sadness, and triumph. When we tell our story, we acknowledge we are of equal value to other human beings. We can get counseling or start our own support group. We can open up with one or two other people who may be in the same situation. By arranging a time, we can share our struggles and our successes with others. Becoming self-aware in this area is not easy. The Messiah trap has partial truths. We are responsible to each other for treating each other with dignity, protecting those more vulnerable, and helping those in need. The error is found in the degree to which it overstates our responsibility, side 1 of the Messiah trap, and understates our worth, side 2 of the Messiah trap. We cannot save the world, nor do we have the power to save ourselves. We acknowledge we need God's help. When we look around, we can clearly see that God does not physically rescue everyone. In some cases, suffering is necessary to learn the lesson. Berry gives an example of a client, Elizabeth, who is beginning to exit the Messiah trap. Elizabeth says, "I keep having the impulse to run away to some quiet place and hide." Berry says gently, "What keeps you from doing that?" Surprised, Elizabeth responds, "You want me to run away? I have too many responsibilities and so much to do. I need someone to tell me what to do. I'm so confused and all out of answers." Berry replies, "You know exactly what to do. You have just told yourself what to do next." Elizabeth responds, "Don't play games with me. I just told you I was confused." "What you have just told me," Berry pressed, "is that you have received a message from your inner self telling you to stop playing the Messiah. It's time to stop pretending that you are indispensable. Your impulse to be alone and quiet is guidance from yourself. Trust yourself. Listen." The origin of Elizabeth's inner guidance is God. It is a directive that we can trust because God is trustworthy. Our task is to cooperate with the growth by listening and responding to the message provided. Needs for healing and growth do not go away simply because they are ignored, misinterpreted, or neglected. We will be at peace only after we accurately receive and cooperated with the call to growth. Elizabeth needed no new insight or direction. She needed to listen to her inner voice and to respond to the guidance she was being given. Her next step was to trust the author of growth, God. Another client, James, said, "My whole life is built around helping other people." He desired freedom from a lifestyle that had left him physically damaged and emotionally estranged from others. He was afraid to let go of being a Messiah. He asked, "What if I release my exaggerated sense of responsibility for others? What next?" He had come to believe that his worth as a person was earned by playing God. We are valuable because we are created by God. We do not increase our value when we make other people happy, gain people's trust, or provide them with things they need. Worth is a gift from God. We only need to accept it. Berry told James, "I am not suggesting that you be inactive. Learning to listen and respond to your inner self is anything but inactive, and it is certainly not easy. while you may eventually be able to help others in a balanced way. Initially, I strongly recommend that you try to resist the urge to be a Messiah at all. You must learn to wait, be still, and listen. Inner issues must be addressed on an inner level, and outer issues must be addressed on an outer level. For the most part, Messiahs tend to deal with inner issues through external accomplishments. Throughout history, the joys, toils, and rewards of inner work has been acquired through prayer, meditation, contemplation, and reflection. Sometimes this inner work can include journal writing, painting, writing songs or poetry, long walks in nature. It can include being alone or with others or a support group. It is a process of becoming self-aware. It is time to honestly face oneself in the silence, to get off the treadmill, turn down the volume in our lives, listen to our inner voice, to God, before we act. In self-reflection, we may come to realize losses we have endured. As adults, some people keep hoping their parents will notice them and love them. Some people feel that they do not deserve to be respected or treated well. Not feeling loved and accepted or having our needs met as a child can bring up feelings of anger. Anger is a signal that there is a problem, and we need to address that emotion in a proper way. Buried anger is still anger and will impact our lives. Some people are so caught up in giving and pleasing others, they do not know what they want from life. One client told Berry, "No one has ever asked me what I wanted out of life. People ask me to listen to them and to give them what they want. Now that you ask me, I don't know how to answer." Some clues to what we may really want is to begin observing what we provide for others. Often we give other people what we unconsciously know we need ourselves. Messiahs need to learn to have fun, to break free from an overly serious approach to life, to laugh more. When our own needs are met, our cup is full or is overflowing, as in Psalm 23, we will find ourselves enjoying our family and friends more. In order to say yes to a more peaceful and fulfilling life, we have to say no to the overload we have been carrying. We prune trees to make them grow. We may need to prune the schedules of our lives by learning to say an appropriate no so we can grow in new ways. Limit commitments limit committees we are on, meetings we attend, and being on call 24/7 for everyone. This is not easy and will take time. People are stronger than we think. We can't always be the strong one, feeling like we have to help others who appear weak. Many times, by overprotecting and helping others, the silent message we send is, "You are not strong, and you need me to rescue you." People can ask too much of us. Sometimes people make us feel like we are their only hope, and only we can help them. This is rarely true. They may be trying to manipulate us and push us past our limits. We have to decide what we can give with a loving heart. Otherwise, we may be giving with resentment. When we say a firm no, the person will turn to someone else, another Messiah perhaps. Pain and suffering are a part of living. As human beings, we need to ask ourselves, are we standing between God and the lessons He wants someone to learn when we continually rescue them? If Messiahs keep blocking the growth process of others, these people learn they do not have to be responsible for their own growth because the Messiah relieves them of that duty. The Messiah does no one a favor by standing between them and their pain. When we make choices for our own growth, we make opportunities for others to grow as well. When we speak the truth, whether or not it is pleasing, we allow others the choice to accept reality or push it away. When we accept the pain that accompanies our own growth, we are less likely to rescue others from their legitimate suffering. We must remember the difference between damaging someone and displeasing them. If we refuse a request or tell another person something they may be unwilling to hear, we are not damaging them. We have placed the responsibility for their own lives on their own shoulders, where it belongs. This sets us free to be responsible for our own mistakes and growth. It is difficult to love others if we have not received love. The Christian Message addresses this in 1 John 4, 7 through 12. 1 John 4, 7 through 12. I'm just going to mention some highlights. God loved us. Yeshua came to show us that love. Since God loved us, we are to love one another. God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. As we grow in the understanding that we are truly loved by God, we become capable of truly loving others. Berry takes the two sides of the Messiah trap and rephrases them to produce growth. Side one, instead of, if I don't do it, it won't get done, to, sometimes it's, sorry, this is not my responsibility. If this is going to get done, someone else will have to take responsibility for it. Side two, everyone else's needs take priority over mine. To, my needs take priority at this time. We have to find balance. When someone does something for me, I would really like it to come from their heart and not from obligation. I also want to give from my heart. 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 3. 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 3 tells us how important it is to have love as a motivation for our actions. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith, so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and deliver my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. I want to bring in a passage here about Yeshua and Peter, Matthew 16, 21 through 23. Matthew 16, 21 through 23. From that time, Yeshua began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, God forbid, Lord, this shall never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me, for you are not on the side of God, but of men. In his love for Yeshua, Peter was speaking against God's plan without realizing what he was doing. Yeshua knew what he was destined to do. He would not let Peter alter his mission. We must not let others keep us from the calling God has for us. To hear God's voice within our being, we have to turn down the noise in our lives. Find that quiet time to seek what he has to say to us. We need to learn to teach people how to be independent and not to rely on us for what they can do for themselves. We hinder them if we keep them dependent on us. There are times out of love we sacrifice our time, energy, and resources for others. However, this is not a lifestyle we can cheerfully sustain long term. To give cheerfully, we have to find balance. So I am very interested in any comments about this because it's something I'm really struggling with.
I'm glad you said that. I was going to say, well, this is such an easy subject to think about. Yes, this is really challenging. It's interesting. There's a book I bought. I haven't read it yet, but I saw it. It says, When Giving Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that one?
No, I just thought this
It's
one.
along the same line as this.
Mm-hmm.
When you think you're helping somebody by giving them money or whatever, and you're actually just keeping them in the same situation
Mm-hmm.
that they're in. What is the author's name again?
Carmen Renee Berry, Berry. I'm saying Berry. It's Berry. Berry. Mm-hmm.
Did you read the book?
I read it twice.
Really? Does she address some of the things that Paul the Apostle says? Paul says that I became all things to all people so that I might save some. And there's other places where he says to consider other people better than you. Does she say anything about what?
No, she doesn't discuss that part of it. It's just taking, like I was wanting to make sure I got it across. We are to help, but there is a balance. And not to say you shouldn't ever help. We should. but finding that balance.
Well, what does she address what Jesus says? Jesus says that the greatest among you will be servant of all.
She doesn't get into a lot of doctrinal
Okay.
type of things, but again,
The emphasis is on balance.
the emphasis, yeah, that's what I mean. I think serving, and if that's your life, but when you get to the point where you're just exhausted, you feel resentful, you don't want one more person to call and ask you to do something, I think you've gone too far.
Oh, okay. Is that what she said?
No, that's what
Well,
I'm
even
saying.
Jesus went out, got
He
away
took
from people.
away, yeah, he took
And he
time
went-
away.
And he even sent the disciples away and went off by himself
Mhm.
to the mountain. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's finding that balance. I mean, that's why I said where our relationship with God is a huge part is what He tells us to do to help others. But it's like but we're also supposed to do things cheerfully. I think that's important. We are supposed to take care of our bodies, and we're supposed to give cheerfully. And it's like some people don't care maybe how stressed you are as long as they get what they want, or how much it puts you out of place, to get what they want. But I don't want to be in that place. I want someone to want to do what they're doing and have time and have that feeling of love giving it, not because they're stressed or obligated and I have to do this.
It's too bad she doesn't address Paul, because Paul seemed like the perfect example of what she's talking about. Because the Apostle Paul just pushed himself and gave himself
Mhm.
and was beaten and shipwrecked and
Mhm.
suffered and all these things. And so I wonder if she would say he's a bad model.
You know, I was just thinking about though, Ron, was the persecution that Paul put on the Christians before his conversion. It seems almost like he was trying to make up for what he had done, persecuting the church. Maybe he was given that opportunity, the gift, the power to do all of that by God.
I hadn't thought about that. I
I
thought
don't
you were
know.
going a different direction. I thought you were going to say his personality before conversion was this type of personality, and it just carried over until after his conversion. He was
Yep.
all
You can see it both ways.
But that was the direction. Was his name Ananias, the one that came and healed him?
Yeah.
And his direction was to go ahead and heal him, he says, because he will pay dearly.
I will show him what he must suffer for my name.
Right, and I mean, that was part of the purpose. I mean, he was supposed to pay dearly. And I was thinking about something else too, is when we're talking about marriage and single people, it tells a woman that's been widowed, she should dedicate her life to the Lord. The same thing for a man. If he's not married, he should dedicate his life to the Lord. But you all have a responsibility to dedicate first your spouse, and second, the Lord, when it comes to going out and evangelizing and doing things in the world. And so I was just studying that this morning, and it hit me that, a lot of people, they take on too much, and their responsibility first is to their spouse. And then second, now I'm not talking about your relationship with the Lord, but I'm talking about your responsibility to the rest of the world. You're supposed to take care of each other first and then put the world second. So even when it talks about a minister that's going to be the head of the church, okay, what are the qualifications? He's had to been able to have kids that's been raised correctly, that there aren't rebellious, and his wife is very dedicated and so forth. But that bond is a part of him being able to manage the other people in the group, the other congregation, because he has raised and he has been married to somebody that he's dedicated his life to, not to the world.
Yeah, and that's what
And Paul was not married.
Yeah, and you bring that up a lot about responsibility.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the proper balance.
Well,
Right.
I learned in Al-Anon, I went to it years ago. My husband was a really bad alcoholic, and God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And to me, at that point when I was checked into an inpatient facility because I became so OCD, I realized that I can't be everything to everybody. I was trying to rescue my whole family, I was trying to change my husband, I was trying to change everything in my life, and I couldn't do that. So once I really got that thought embedded in my mind, it helped me with my messiahism, because I was out to save the world, you know. I was gonna stop a marriage that had anything to do with alcohol. I was going to make sure that everybody was aware of what alcoholism was, and my house had to be just so. I had all of everything had to be alphabetized, whether it was a supplement or spices or whatever it was, and if somebody got it out of order, it wasn't good. You know, what I'm saying, I mean, I became obsessed with this, and I was going to provide this perfect home for my family, yet my husband was living downstairs, drunker and skunk. So that is the way I see it, is that a lot of times because of the problems we're dealing with, we try to help others, maybe with those same problems, so we think we're gonna resolve something. But until we turn to God and really let Him do the work, we can't be that Messiah. We can't be that person. I mean, it's all justified only by Him. I can't take on a big project and not think that He's behind me all the way.
When you were saying that, I was thinking about Keith, but go ahead, Keith. I had something I wanted to bring up that I thought
Well,
Keith would appreciate.
So
but
you,
go
Ron,
ahead.
and then Diane.
Okay, I just wanted to read the scripture and make two comments. Paul must have had an issue similar to what we're talking about here, because he says, at least in the family, because he says in 1 Timothy 5:8, but if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. That is a monumental condemnation there, that they're worse than an infidel, and he has denied the faith. So it's that scripture alone right there, for me, impresses upon me the importance of the family and those that are real close to you, those that the Almighty has given to you and put under your charge. I should say it like that.
What verse was that, Keith?
1 Timothy 5:8. 1 Timothy 5:8. I also want to say two examples. I think I got this wrong, I'm not quite sure, but Jonathan Edwards was a great evangelist, and I might have him mixed up with somebody else, but we'll use his name, and maybe I can look up and find out if that's accurate. But anyway, there was a great evangelist, and he went out all the time, all over the place, and he would come home, and his family just fell apart because he was never home. He could never say no to some kind of a campaign or some kind of tent meeting. He could never say no, and his children turned out a mess. And somebody made a comment, did he really accomplish anything? He's going to all these tent meetings and people are coming up and giving their life to the Lord, but his children turned out, had several children, at least the person that I'm thinking of had several children, I think in the neighborhood of 7 or 8, and they all turned out to be a mess because their father never was home, and they felt that they weren't loved or wanted. Another one, a more recent one, is a A lot of you probably have heard Dr. David Jeremiah. But when he first started, his first 5, 6, 7, 8 years, he was planting churches and going to tent meetings and all these different things. And his boys turned into get right on the verge of teenagers. I think it was when they were 10, 11, 12, right in there. And he come home one day, and his wife told him, "You are neglecting your children." And he wouldn't have none of it. He wouldn't hear it because he was doing this unto the Lord.
Mhm.
That went on a little bit longer, and he come home one night, and his wife told him, "I have prayed about this for years now, and I'm fed up to here." And I don't know if that's exact words, but that's basically what she meant. I've had it. She goes, "I'm turning you over to God, and we're gonna my prayers are gonna be that I want Him to deal with this for you. I want Him to straighten you up." And he said, when he heard that, he totally changed, because he said he did not want to fall into the hands of the living God. And he said it just woke him up, and he realized that he was neglecting the most important people that God had given him in his life, and totally changed his ministry and what he did. So the final thing I just want to say is, I wrote down balance right away, but it's okay for us to put up walls. We have to have walls, and it's okay to tell people no, and it's okay to refuse to get involved at certain times. We can't do everything all the time. That's all. So thanks, Shirley. Appreciate it.
Okay. Did you want to make your comment, and then I'll go to...
Yeah, a couple of things now. James Dobson has a similar story to what Keith just told, that when he was a teenager, he was becoming very rebellious, and his dad was becoming a prominent speaker in Christian circles. And one day, his dad came home, and his mom told him that James Dobson had done this and done that, and his dad completely just resigned from speaking. And I think they even moved away, and he just started spending time with James Dobson, and it changed the whole course of Dobson's life, and consequently, a whole lot of other people in this world. But that wasn't what I wanted to say. It reminded me, you were talking, Gene. I'm sure you'll appreciate this, but in The Chosen, one of the scenes was when Jesus was going to heal the paralyzed man at the pool of Bethesda. And it was so powerfully done, because you can visually see this. He's walking over other people laying there that need help to get to the paralyzed man that he was focusing on. So that says a lot. That's straight out of Scripture. It says a lot about God is not dealing with everybody at the same time in the same way. There's a process going on, and Jesus himself said, "I was sent to the lost sheep of Israel." You know, they were first in the ministry, and then it became to the Gentiles. So that's part of what you were saying.
Diane?
Well, Keith, I just mentioned the word boundaries, and I just kept thinking about that though, because I remember being here when you did this for Ladies' Day, and I remember when you were talking about boundaries not too long ago. And boundaries are safe for everybody involved, whether it's the rescuer, protector, the teacher, the counselor, and then the person that you are actually working with. Because otherwise, like you said, when will they have a chance to really know what they are capable of? If we are continually inserting ourselves into their lives in an unhealthy way.
Right.
In an unhealthy way. And it reminds me, so I was on the phone with my sister, Stephanie, not too long ago. She lives in Texas. She has a mother-in-law who is ill. And Keith knows this story inside out. My sister is a rescuer. I'm trying to think if there are any one of these that she is not. But even though I have told her, and I started out gentle, I did. Reminding herself that her husband is a very healthy man. He can take care of his mother. She also has a brother-in-law. He's very healthy. He can take care of his mother. But in my sister's mind, she is the only one who can do these things. And she will give you every kind of list of justifications for this stance that she has taken. So I started out gentle. Well, that's good that you're there. It's good that you can help. It's good that you're available. So now, and then I just went from that to just bluntly telling her, your husband and his brother can do these things, but they work. It doesn't matter that they work. You are one person. Well, and then she'll start with the justifications. So I'm saying that to say this. Not just a couple of weeks ago, she and I were talking, and she started asking me questions about, have I done this for my mom? Have I asked my mom this? Well, why didn't I do that? So now you know what she's done. She's projecting her care of her mother-in-law to me caring for my mom here. And I got off the phone with her that day and I thought, well, that just makes me mad that she's doing that. And I thought, I might have to address this if she continues to project this on me. So I just saw a different perspective of this Messiah complex. Not specifically for me, but for my sister who I know suffers from it, but just the fact that she started asking me all of these questions. Well, what you should have done is you should have told mom this, or you should have told her that. You need to follow up on that. And some of it, might be justifiable sometime down the road, but anyway. So thank you, I really appreciate this.
Thank you. Yeah, there's one story I didn't talk about. It was a guy that he was a crusader, and they had all these projects and all these things to do, and there was somebody that worked for them. She came to work when she was paid to work for them. He was upset because she didn't come in and devote her weekend and do all this other stuff without being paid because of this cause that they were there. And he was really upset with her. But she's like, well, this is what I'm getting paid for. And that's, she didn't jump into the cause. She was just doing what she was supposed to do. But that wasn't good enough because he was so stressed, because there was so much to be done and it wasn't getting done. Okay.
Why, I wrote down this question here, and you probably already answered it, but why is it so common to go over the top and not find a balance? Why do you think we do this? And all of us do it in some area.
Mm-hmm.
None of these seven, none of us are totally immune to all these things.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it in people in this room. I just tell you right now.
Yeah.
Including myself, so I
Yeah.
don't point at anybody, as
Right.
Ken always says, you got 1 point, here's where you got 4 pointing back at you, brother. So, but why is it so common to go over the top and not be able to find a balance? It just seems to be real common in the human nature. Why do you think that is?
I could give some of my thoughts and you guys. Okay, so I think the Bible does emphasize we are to give, to serve, to help, to go the extra mile. And it's there. And it doesn't speak as much about taking care of ourselves. And we want to love, we want to be giving. And then you can get into maybe the psychological things like some of I mentioned, childhood, what happened, and you were taught to give and not to think of yourself. And so when you see a need, like this one woman, this poor soul, she needed me. So she neglected the whole wedding of her sister.
Yeah, that was really extreme.
And so I think we can get caught up and we get off focus. And we're supposed to give and love and help. So that we're going to do it. We're going to do that. And I think we miss some of the balance there. So that's...
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Because the scripture does say we're to love our neighbor.
That's right.
As we love ourselves, right?
Okay. We're not loving ourselves when we just totally sacrifice that we're dying because we're so worn out and exhausted from all
Very
we're
good,
doing. That
yes.
is not the intent, I think, of giving. And then being the cheerful giver, I think, is important. There's, so, okay, Cynthia.
I think that we take unto ourselves the knowledge of the tree of good and evil instead of looking for God's wisdom.
Exactly.
Instead of focusing on what it is that He wants us to do, we decide for ourselves what is good and right and proper.
Mhm.
And we get all out of balance, because if we were wholly devoted to Him and relying, Jesus didn't do anything but what His Father sent Him to do, what His Father told Him to say. That's our example. When we are ready to go do something, one of the things that David did that's recorded over and over and over, and it's not recorded this way with all the rest of the kings. David would go to God, should I do this? Should I do that? And God would say yes, or He would say no, or, but David always went to God first. And the time he didn't, with Bathsheba, got him in a whole bunch of trouble.
And he numbered it.
Yeah, numbered Israel, yeah. Right, so, I really think that it's not seeking God's will in our life. We belong to Him. We're ambassadors for Jesus Christ. We need to be going in His name, which means that we've got to seek His will in what we're doing. Because we can say that they're good works, but if God's not in them, they're empty.
Amen. That was what I was thinking the whole time. It's like you got to seek His will in that situation first. And if it's not of Him, I don't want anything to do with it. I mean, there's a lot of issues in life. There's always going to be issues in life. There's to be very prayed for and prayed about. And whatever that answer that He drives you to do, that's what you do. I mean, we only can do so much. We're only human. We're
Right.
fallible. And if we go inserting our will into that situation, we might make things worse. Probably, more likely, we're going to make things worse. But if we have Him in that situation first, I'm all right with that. I'll go do that. But is this what you want me to do? Is this what you want me to do, Father? I was like, if it's not, I'll know.
That was my prayer today with Jennifer going up to Altamont. If this is where God wants you, then the door's going to be open. If this isn't where God wants you, then the door's going to be closed. And it's just, my prayer is that God's will would be manifest.
Absolutely. Something better. He's got something better for you.
Yeah, I don't remember the context of the verse, but Yeshua was saying something about there's always going to be poor that you can help out.
Yes.
And
Poor will always be with you.
and just looking at his example, that he did not do everything, even though he had far more ability to do that than we would do right now. He chose not to, and like you said, he was listening. And so I think that's the thing, because we don't know the full story, and our helping might actually be hurting someone, that they need that lesson. And if we step in when we shouldn't be, that's not good for them or us.
I think of Lazarus.
Mhm.
Whenever he knew that Lazarus was dying, and yet he didn't go. He wanted to,
Mhm.
but he didn't go until after he was dead for 3 days. And there was a purpose for that. His Father wanted that to happen. And so when we think of ourselves, if we go to do something and we haven't really consulted Heavenly Father about what we should be doing, we're taking it upon our own will.
Yeah. Keith, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just had one other question here. I wrote down, who am I to tell someone I see this in them? I mean, who am I? This is a door into destroying a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can destroy a relationship if I would see let's say I was accurate, okay, let's just say I was accurate. even though everybody knows I'm always 100% accurate. Let's just say I was accurate, and I seen a pleaser or rescuer or giver, counselor, protector, teacher, crusader, helper. I love that. Helpomanic, I love that.
Helpaholic,
Helpaholic,
yeah.
I love that. Reminds me of, anyway. Who am I to step out? I mean, that's a risk. You're taking a real risk to step out in an area. Some people, and then there's some people that are these things, they're happy. And they're succeeding in it. They're prospering in it. Their life is good. They never stop. It's always involved in something. And they're doing just fine. You know what? I'm a little envious of them people. You know, that they can be some of these things and handle it. I think it's pretty cool. It's rare, but I think it's pretty cool. I don't have that ability to do that. But nonetheless, I was thinking about, you know, you get a tendency as a Christian, you want to help people, you want to rescue them, or whatever, every one of these things, you want to get them out of that groove that they're, like your sister, for instance. That's what you would like to do. But you can't, because, well, it doesn't appear that you can, because she, number one, you won't tell her.
No, I said I did.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said you were going to.
No, I might have to tell her about the projecting of her Messiah complex on me with Mom.
But nonetheless, then I wasn't thinking of you, it just popped into my head, to be quite honest with you, but with Stephanie, but who am I to tell someone else this about themselves? You know, me, any of us that have issues ourselves, who am I to tell somebody that?
Yeah, unless
Well,
they come to you.
Right.
It says to rebuke a brother and he will thank you. You rebuke somebody that doesn't believe and they'll hate you. That's over in Proverbs. So, I mean, you can rebuke without making somebody hate you. You can bring something up that you see in them that is not according exactly to what Scripture should be, and mention to them, have you considered this? I mean, there's a way to do it without hurting somebody.
Sure.
You know, but I think that we all stand in correction with one another, and that's the purpose of having a fellowship.
Yeah, definitely.
So
It's just
don't
this
all
risk.
of you fire on me at once, okay?
No, I agree with you, Jeannie. I do. And there is a way to do it. I don't know if I have the ability to do it. But yeah, that's.
Well, I think if we see something, you can always say, you know, I've noticed something I would like to share with you. Is it okay that we talk about it?
Okay.
You can ask permission to bring up something, and they can say, I don't think I want to hear that, or not.
Now, I've done this once before, 2 times before, but definitely once before. And the guy was very receptive, very receptive. And so he didn't, well, I don't remember now, it was a long time ago that what he said exactly, but he was very receptive, and you know, we're still real good friends. But yeah, it's a hard thing to tell somebody that you love something that they might not want to hear, but sometimes it's necessary. So, anyway, thanks again, Shirley. I'm gonna finally shut up.
Anybody have anybody
Well, I
else?
think the way you can also share with each other is just like you did today. It makes us do some self-examination of who we are and how we, and every one of us will be a Messiah one time or the other, and you've given us a good background on being able to measure that. And just speaking about it in the group helps one another overcome some of our problems.
Yeah, I'm not speaking as I'm right there, thick in it. So I'm not speaking at like
No,
you know.
that's what I'm
but
saying.
it's like
you
it's sharing
brought
this.
You brought the subject to light, and that's what we're supposed to do.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay.
We just went through the foot washing ceremony, and that ceremony was given by Jesus as an example of service. At least that's part of the message we believe. But he was doing it to a bunch of very capable, people with problems that they had to pride themselves, and he was setting an example of being humble and serving. Why wouldn't he just say, "Hey guys, go to some water and do it yourself"? What do we do with that? What do we do with that example of? How does that fit in with this, you think? Have you kind of thought about that? The Apostle Paul, he 2 Corinthians 12, he says, "Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities and reproaches and necessities and persecutions and distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong. I am become a fool and glorying. Ye have compelled me. For I ought to have been commended to you, for in nothing am I behind the very chiefest apostles, though I be nothing." Now that idea of not count yourself even equal with others, but being a servant. So how do we, and I'm not criticizing, I'm saying how do we reconcile that stuff? Anybody have any ideas?
Well, I don't know if this exactly addresses it, but it's like in one example, the guy that was the attorney, he either helped her or he abandoned her. And in all of this, it's not to say don't serve. It's use wisdom in the serving and the giving. And I don't see anything contradictory with Yeshua being that servant, and we are that servant, but we're still all made equal in God's eyes. We're all human beings. We all are valuable. I don't see a problem with taking on that servant attitude in nature. I think that's good. I just think when we get out of balance with it, then we can't do it from our heart. We can't do it with love that we're supposed to do it. Even what Yeshua did, he did it for the joy that was for ahead of him, even though it was very difficult. And so there's times we stress ourselves when we do things when we have to, but we can't live that way, or we're not going to live very well. Again, it's just the balance. Help as much as if you have all the time and that's what you want to do, you don't have other responsibilities, it gives you joy, you sleep well at night, you're available, then do it. But if you have other obligations, those are important. It's always bothered me with these ministers. They go out and try to reach everybody else and neglect their family, and there have been others.
Yeah.
And that bothers me because that's not, you're neglecting what you're supposed to do with your family.
And this is why we're doing what we're doing. This is why we're called to continue to study and to grow. We're digging deeper. We're making fine distinctions in how to be a child of God. You start out, everything's so broad, but as you progress, it becomes finer and finer points that God is looking at us and saying, make the distinction. Make the distinction here. And that's what you're talking about, I think, in this approach. If you will. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have an answer to what Ron was asking? Or?
I was just thinking about the foot washing, and I kind of always looked at it more like it's a matter of humbleness. And it's in order for Christ, who's the head of the house, to wash the servants' feet, and at the same time he's telling them, when you're in the house, you're going to be washing the servants' feet, because you're going to be my disciples. You will go out into the world, you will wash their feet just like I've washed yours, because you make yourself humble. It doesn't mean you make yourself inexpendable. It doesn't mean that you make yourself independent from him. It's just a matter of humbleness to me when he's washing the feet. It's not to say that the servant, I think we don't tend to look at what the whole purpose was to show the humbleness that we should have to one another, and to the world. But that doesn't necessarily mean as a servant where I'm going to go out and bust my buns regardless of whether that was in God's plan or not. That doesn't, to me, equate. I think it was just a matter of humbleness. I have to realize that this sinner over here is no worse or no better than me. I'm still a sinner.
That's important. Finding humility, humbleness is that you know less than the other person, but you know better. Would you say that? Is that what you're saying?
And, well, I had an example the other day. I've kind of always been, and I've recognized this, I just didn't know what to do with it, but I've been very prejudiced of Islam and people that, well, I live in an area where it's highly populated with a lot of Muslims. And when I go shopping at Sam's or whatever, you see tons of them there and tons of them on Manchester and that. And I was trying to put these big bottles in my trunk of my car. You know, they're big water bottles. And the guy standing beside me just acted like there was nothing. I mean, he was younger than me, and I'm trying to pick up these 30-pound bottles and put them in the back of my car. And he's just like, those things are really heavy, aren't they? And he was just some common little white guy, okay? And this Muslim, and I know he was a Muslim, he was dressed like one. He come flying over there, let me help you, you shouldn't be picking that up. And he loaded my whole car up and then picked up and I just looked up at heaven and I said, thank you. He broke my prejudice.
It's really hard to know what's in the heart of people. And I'm not criticizing him.
No, I mean, he was so sweet. And then I said, oh, I thank you so much. Pray you have a blessed day. And he said, you too.
And his heart was probably right. But in all honesty, I think a lot of white guys are like, I try to help this lady, she's gonna turn on me and you know.
I mean, he's just busy talking up a storm, and I'm talking to him from his trunk to my trunk, and I wasn't even paying that much attention, but this other guy comes running over. It was just kind of cute, you know. But it did help me not be so hard-nosed about people and think that I'm going to get something out of them just by the way they look. You know.
So what do you do with what Jesus said then? Let the greatest among you will be the servant of all. So, what do you do?
Well, servant of all doesn't mean you have to just wear yourself down till you're not capable of doing anything else. I think it's the definition of, okay, servant is fine. It's taking it to extreme that you aren't physically able to just keep a lifestyle of doing so much. I don't think there's nothing wrong with being a servant, and that's what you do. But it's overdoing it. Again, it's the out of balance part. That's what I feel. We're not going to stop doing all the things we do for people, because we make better choices of maybe some things we can't do. We can't do everything. I think, Troy, that's what you were saying. We can't do everything and keep our own selves in line with where God wants us to be. There's a limit to what we can give.
But sometimes God pushes you to that limit. He did Jesus.
Mm-hmm. But that's a different situation. That's not a lifestyle.
It's a difference between what God wants you to do and what you feel you are required to do in order to have value in His sight.
If you have a relationship with Him, I believe that He will put you where you're needed. It's in our minds where we tend to take it too far. And knowing the difference is in that relationship. He'll tell you if you're listening, you know, yes, I wanted you to do that, but, you know, you're really inserting yourself in a situation where I should be in that place, not you. So it's that discernment, that wisdom that comes from the relationship that you have with them, that I feel like that's where the balance is going to be found and the boundaries are going to, you know, be set.
We have a church family that really models that idea of submit to one another. I mean, there is no one who's walking into church and expecting everyone else to serve them.
Mhm.
People just, something needs to be done, they go and do it. And that's a very healthy, safe place for all of us, because we get re-energized because we're serving one another.
When I say the Father pushed Jesus, I don't want to be misunderstood on that. But the will of the Father took Jesus Christ, the Son of God, to the very limits of what he was going to do. I mean, in the garden, he didn't want to go through what he was going to go through. If there's any other way, it was not.
Mhm.
And it was, he gave everything. He gave all he had. And he's our example.
Right. And well, it also talks about laying your life down for your brother. In my mind, it doesn't exclude something like that. If I see a child that's going to be hit by a car and I get them out of the way and I jump in and it kills me, well, that's something I did. But on a lifestyle level, there's only so much humanly, physically we can do. We have to sleep. We have to eat. We need to keep our minds peaceful and calm to stay connected with God. If we're constantly driven from the time we get up to the time we go to bed, trying to be out helping other people who maybe could help themselves, and we're so focused on that, we don't find our balance in life. I mean, there's times that, okay, like you guys, right now you're just helping the Stows out, big time. And they call you for everything. And that's really as commendable of you. But if you had people doing that, 4 families doing that every week, you would never be able to live your life, pray, get your own food, shop, or anything. That is where it's out of balance. Sometimes, like what you're doing it for a period of time. It's not what you're going to be doing for the next 10 years, I would expect. But sometimes we do give ourselves and we sacrifice. That's what I meant by the last part. I say we sacrifice for people in those situations, but we can't maintain that sacrificing forever as long as we live. We are not made to do that.
So what she's saying is she's not condemning sacrifice and serving, but again, keeping it in balance.
Right.
Yeah. that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, keeping it in balance. I mean, it's just like the one comment, trying to outrun your humanity. You're trying to do something you're not made to do. You have to take care of yourself. Otherwise, forget helping anybody. You're going to need the help. So that it's just this balance. Always be willing to serve and love and give. But sometimes you have to draw the line, even on people who need something. Like what you said, Yeshua stepped over those people to get to the one. There's a reason, and he understood more about that than why we would. No. Is that?
Oh yeah, I just think it's a fascinating subject, and there's this give and take going back and forth in this subject that requires a lot of distinctions, a lot of defining and thinking about drawing the line here.
Right. And it's hard to say no when someone needs you. And I totally get that. Even if you're exhausted, it's hard.
I think there was 2 subjects that we really came upon, and that was discernment and balance.
Mm-hmm.
And those 2 tells us whether to go forward and take on more or to hold back. Because I know for witness to myself how much I have volunteered for in my past life that's just been overwhelming to the point where I think that probably most women wouldn't have been able to cope with it.
You still do, Jean.
I still-
You talk about everywhere you run Naomi and the piles of dishes that they leave for you and having to go in and cook food for all of them and I mean, you're still serving your family and enabling them
Get
to
this
take.
straightened out.
Well, okay.
There's 7 ways we
I
can.
thank you, I thank you. Well, I'm a lot milder than what I used to be. I just can't get around as well.
I don't think we're gonna decide and get it just, this is the line, we're gonna walk in it. We're always gonna be pulled, we're gonna have to make
Yeah.
decisions, we're gonna have to decide what we can do, how well we feel. But I think one thing that for me, that I need to remember, there are other resources. I'm not it when someone needs help. Can I refer them? Can somebody else help them better than me? Can I support them with love and not abandon them, but help them find what they need?
Thank you.
Okay.
That's great.
Good, okay. Do you wanna take over and close us out, or are we doing prayer requests, or did we do that, or we,
You wanna do prayer requests?
we don't need to, we'll do it tomorrow at church, but
Okay.
just whatever. I'm gonna say blessing on the meal.
Anybody have a closing prayer then?